Hi everyone. So in this video, I'm going to do a quick tour about the five pillars of the access gate. So really visibility, access control, identity, encryption, and then bundling everything together in an audit trail to accelerate compliance. So this is going to be a quick tour, and hopefully we can cover all of these topics. So first, let's start with visibility and building an asset inventory. The basis here is that you can't protect what you can't see, and most of the OT sites, at least the one I've been to, don't have a reliable inventory of what's connected. So in the access gate, when it's connected to the network, you can add to the monitor tab. And here it will ingest a span port or net flow to provide a quick understanding of what are the devices, what type of protocol they're using, and so on. And that allows you to add them to your asset inventory. Which is a long list of all of the items that live in the environment, and information about them, both at the kind of overview level that you can see here, but also being able to drill down on specific systems and understand like what's their IP, their DNS name, what type of protocol they're using, where the access to them are managed, and so on. So really, that's the first pillar of deploying the access gate. The idea is that you're doing all of this without installing any security agents or changing the network that was already in place. It's purely passive, observing what's happening and allowing to build this inventory. So that's the first like kind of visibility pillar. Then once you have this, you can move into the second, which is about access control. So here, the access gate manage access control is what we call enclave, and enclave is kind of an understanding or granting access to a given system. So here I'm going to go in the first one, which is I have a web server running on HMI, and I want to grant access to some specific users. So I can select the different users or groups based on what I've been configuring as the identity provider. And then with a click of a button, I can grant access to a given user. What's interesting here is that I'm not giving access to an IP or a specific machine. It's really about the user. So when it comes to the user, the flow is a bit as follows. First, they will access a splash page like this, where they can authenticate. Once I'm authenticated, the access is granted, and so I can access the underlying service. So here we're running this HTTP server on port 80 and see my end page. What's again, if you think about our user, so here we have a user that's just logged in, so we can see that the user is logged in. This is the associated IP where they're coming from, and so it allows to have a more dynamic type of system and manage the identity this way. Once while we're in there, a quick or an interesting set of features that the access gate allows you to do is that you can deploy encryption. So in most OT network, usually you don't have encryption, or it's difficult to deploy encryption, manage PKI on one side, and then deploy encryption. And then the access gate allows you to do that like really in a click. So if I go back to my table, I can go to advanced and then click TLS required and save. And now instead of accessing the HTTP page, I can access the HTTPS. I keep my protocol because it's still running untethered kind of on that side. And I can access the page, and this time there's a certificate that's running. We can see that it's like a valid certificate that has been maintained or served accessing this page. So all of the communication between the users and the proxy is encrypted, and then the final kind of underwire physical protection is still untouched. So this is a great way to deploy encryptions really mainly in a matter of a click. When it comes to the PKI, this is something that either the access gate can configure like dynamically. We ship the access gate with a PKI, so it manages the certificate renewals and all of that jazz. But you can also integrate that into a given PKI and then use it as kind of an intermediate certificate if you have that too. So a bit of flexibility there. So that was about really encryptions and being able to encrypt some of the protocols that are running on a given site. And that allows us to move kind of another pillar, which is about remote access. What's interesting here is that I don't think you remember, but when I logged in, my given user has specific access to systems. So the way it works is that whenever you load an asset, or you configure an asset, you're able to load some of the credential to access this system. So for example, my MOPS IDS is something I can access through SSH. I can load the credentials and the password in the proxy, in the access gate. And so they're not deployed on the shop floor or on anyone in the company. It's really they live in the access gate. What I have here is that I have an enclave where I'm managing access to that given system. So it's the remote admin management. And here I can see I granted Florian access to both an HMI using RDP, but also my SSH, which is what we wanna show. When the user authenticate, then you can just click on that given link, and it opens a browser session where you're actually like running SSH command. They go through the proxy. We do all of these authentications and making sure that you are who you are, and then pushing them to the local device. So you have a fully proxied session, which is really, really interesting. And that solves most of the remote access or vendor access, because this is something that you maintain. Whenever they log out, the connection is shut. Whenever you authenticate for a given period of time, I'll show you exactly how it looks like. But here, this is the access screen that we use for authentication. And we can say this is going to give you access for an hour, a day, or something like this. So at the end of the maintenance or the task, kind of the permissions are closed and the system is hardened, like logs down over time, which reduce really the attack surface. That's about remote access. I'll do a quick look about the rules and the alerts. So the access gate listens to what happens on the network and is able to raise a lot of alerts. So we have a team that builds them internally, and you can configure really a connection to a SIM. We export RCS over TCP, so it's the standard really to push OT logs into your SIM and being able to treat it this way. The last part of this video is about compliance. So we've seen kind of all of the pieces. First, I build my inventory, then I control access, I encrypt, I give remote access, and I create a ton of logs and detection. And you can bundle kind of all of that together in the tab that's called assessment. So here I'm able to say I'm going to run an assessment, so demo assessment, selecting a given framework. So we'll do like the CMMC in this case with a date. I specify the enclaves and whoever is going to work on that audit. The idea here is that all of the controls have been codified, and all of the controls that the access gate cover is going to be marked as in place, and we'll kind of associate the logs and the proof of this. For the ones that are out of scope for the access gate, so in our case, for example, access rights are reviewed periodically. This is more like a process or a team behaviors that you have in place. So then the team is able to say, yes, this is in place, adding attachment, and then kind of consolidating everything in one place. What's interesting there is that you can generate a PDF and then download it. And that's going to run an assessment on the system, kind of fill the information directly, so you're not spending a lot of time filling all of this manually, as well as kind of show the controls that are in place and all of the proof of this control. So it's pretty easy to run an assessment regularly, keep the PDF as the reports, and making sure that you have really a compliance that's ensured the whole time. And that's it for the quick tour. I packed a lot of things in there, so hopefully that makes sense. But the idea is really the ability to deploy a full journey with the access gate, starting with visibility, the access control, the encryption, the remote access, the rules, and then bundling everything into report assessment that saves a lot of time when you need to run that. So thanks for your attention, and let us know if you have any question.